with actual excitement and great happiness, welcome to the new office. It's been a tough couple of weeks here as I've been moving box after box, both with rented vans and trucks as well as my own car, putting a massive amount of stuff from storage units and my old working space into a palette of wonder and potential. I am now 100% moved into this space with what I would call a version 1.0 of the working area and piles of to-dos, wishes, and dreams buried among shelving units filled to the brim with media, papers, and parts of my own history. Before I say anything else, I am in heaven. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It, a podcast about technology, history, and getting myself out of debt. Thanks to Daniel Boyd, Jeff Atwood, and the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. The new space is about 8 times larger than the old space. It has a very dependable temperature. I've had a temperature, humidity, and CO2 monitor running. It never really gets lower than about 68, never gets higher than 72 Fahrenheit. It's a quiet building in a beautiful area of my state, and the drive to it fills me with thoughts about what is going to come to me on that day. Even in the short time I've been here, it feels like a new chapter in my life. It doesn't do good to trash where you've been before. I had a wonderful space before. For 3 years, I was in this box that I reconfigured into a combination studio and workshop, basically setting it up to be a sort of cockpit where I would do work. And it would be fine for most things. I could do podcasting, I could stream to my heart's content, and I could open up what felt like infinite windows into a whole bunch of projects and get started. The cracks that started to show up are only the cracks that come from the strain of success and more ideas being loaded on to my process. I could do videotapes, I could do CD-ROMs, I could do scanning, but not often at the same time and with a lot of difficulty keeping them straight within the space. It was just unavoidable that over time, when I took on projects like the computer shopper or dealing with thousands of DVDs, that it would become a kind of switching system between what I was going to do today and what needed to be set aside for tomorrow. It's the nature of being a single point of failure. I just had to be the one part that couldn't be swapped out, couldn't be doubled or tripled, and the pure physicality of the office started to scale poorly. But now, all of that has melted away. Collapsing all of my storage units into one space means that when I walk in here with the darkness that I like in one part and the lightness of a workshop in another part of the room not colliding with each other, I'm able to see both what I have to do in the near future and what is waiting for me when I'm done. A lot of these projects ended up as boxes from people, boxes I packed up, and they had been living inside of a storage unit that was full to the brim. I had U-matic tapes that needed digitizing, I had printed materials that needed to be either scanned or filed, and everywhere in between were little bits of myself and my personal history that should be labeled or, frankly, discarded. Financial materials that made sense when I was 20, parts of a school newspaper I wrote for that should be scanned, and ever present, everywhere, boxes of software that should be imaged and then put into deep storage. Since I work for a company that has deep storage, that's where it'll be going. So it's just a process of going through what I have in all of these piled up boxes and then prepping them for their final resting place. I have also been throwing things out, not anything like media or materials, just those little bits of back and forth that happen when you have so many items. Boxes that are no longer functional, pieces of packing material, even bits of containers for food or drink that people left somewhere and they got packed up. All of this has been going out the door as well, making everything just a little nicer. Whenever you start out with a new space, the whole world extends out in front of you. I got a couple shelf units to put all of those little mementos I've built up over the years, pieces of GitLamp or vintage computing or books that I've appeared in or been given. Pieces of my own history. My first computer sits behind me, a Commodore PET, along with the cow-colored Macintosh I had in my 20s. That and a whole other bunch of souvenirs and mementos from the life I've lived so far. I've got a nice carpet that I've put down, and everything is reconfigurable in here. I can choose whatever I want to do. With a wall space that is massive, I've been hanging up posters and pieces of my family history. With shelf units that can hold 10,000 pounds, I'm able to put equipment up and out of the way, ready to be accessed when I'm having that kind of a day. The day when I want to actually load 100-pound items off to the repair shop. All sorts of days, in fact, are accommodated for here. It's a speculative statement, but having this sort of calm environment with its noise profile being really pleasant, its temperature being dependable, me not feeling overheated all the time, I think it means that I may be looking at a lot of productivity in the year or years to come. Everything can change. That's the lesson I've been teaching people for years. But at this moment, at this juncture, it feels like a page has turned. I've become, well, maybe not better, more content, happy, and hopeful. And when it comes down to it, if you're looking at hundreds of little projects, conversations, and pieces of material that you've had throughout your life, I guess that's really the most you can ask for, is that instead of ending up with an incalculable labyrinth in your basement or in a unit you're paying hundreds of dollars for, you instead have a space that represents your goals, your dreams, the pieces of your story you want to tell before there's no time left to tell it. Here in my 50s, I am now surrounded by toys and memories and paper that younger versions of me would have flipped over, seeing it so close to me and waiting for me to fix it up. Maybe I'm a little too old to flip, but I'm not too old to be this happy. What am I facing down? Well, the computer shopper is definitely a huge project. I've got to debind them, scan them, get them de-skewed, and put them up. I've got hundreds of those to do. I also have hundreds of different sets of tapes. I've got cassette tapes still requiring me to digitize them. I have pieces of paper that represent my own work that I should really get somewhere digital and then put away permanently. I think there's publications that I was part of or I was near for which no other digital copy currently exists, so maybe I'll be the one to make them. It's important that I not double the work of others. People are doing really good jobs with certain kinds of magazines, certain kinds of software. I just have to step carefully in those realms. But I do not lack for unique items that may only exist in this room. This beautiful, environmentally calming, potential-filled, and personally fulfilling workspace. Let's see what happens next. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It, thanks to James Bekoyanu, Ernie Hershey, Michael Rubin, Dilip Reddy, Sean Kelly, Trixie the Cat, Joey Mink, Martin, Symbionts, Benjamin Guts, and Anonymous, along with the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. Depending on how you calculate it, I have definitely taken a financial hit in one direction, but hopefully my recurring costs, which are what really drive a person down, are starting to reduce. I'm still focused on trying to find monthly or quarterly recurring costs that can be handled. It's important to me. So I'm continuing that work of improving my financial health as well as my own. And speaking of recurring, what may happen when I have a room that I want to spend more than just a few hours in, one that I can spend a full day in, working at, walking around in, and getting things done? Well, we'll see what the outcome of that turns out to be. I'm as excited as you are.